We cannot hear you.
Oh, now? Yes? Okay, good. Christy, if you can send me the link for YouTube, and then I will share it on my page on Facebook as well. If you can send it on Messenger, that'll be great.
Okay, I do now.
Thank you. So anyway, good evening and good morning to everyone. This is the fifth of our sixth class series on the SHRAVASTI meditation, in particular, looking closely at the basic sutra that is the foundations of the SHRAVASTI meditation method by His Holiness the Drikung Kyabgen. So also, if you guys can check and make sure that you are muted. Okay, so give me 1 second. Let me share it to the Dharma centers. Okay, so let us begin with the opening recitations. Remembering that basically what these opening recitations are, that they set the motivation, they set the proper direction and context for our Dharma practice. Yeah, so first we are going to read this once in the different languages, in the different audio rooms. And then after that, I will chant one time in Tibetan. All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in a state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. Dolo Dhamma Jebe Tra Nopar Jebe Gek Tarpada Tamje Gembe Bardu Chopra Jeba Tam Jege Su Jebe Ma Nangkadang Nyambe Senchen Tamje Dewa Dhan Den Dungyao Dangre Nerdu Lana Mebaya Dabra Zobe Janju Rinpoche Tomparanja Denje De Sama Gengi Bardu Lunga Yisum Gewa Lagu Mashe Bardu Lunga Yisum Gewa Lagu De Derene Sunde Nema Santa Samgi Bardu Lunga Yisum Gewa Lagu Sanje Jodan Sogi Jonam La Chanchu Bardu Dani Gyabsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonanki Rola Pencher Sanje Drumpra Shu Manang Kadang Nyampe Senchen Tamche Dewa Dan Dewe Gyudan Dempara Gyurji Dunya Dang Dunya Gi Gyudang Drawa Gyurji Dunya Mepe Dewa Dang Me Drawa Gyurji Nering Chadang Nidang Drawe Tang Nyong La Nepara Gyurji. Now take a few minutes to let both body and mind to settling quietly into its own place. It helps to enter into this with a certain determination to become quiet, or to allow body and mind to become quiet on the one hand, and on the other hand, to bring about some appreciation, some contentment with being just here right now, body and mind together. Think of how wonderful it is that for a few moments, for a short period of time at least, we don't have to do anything except for being fully present. Both body and mind can stop being busy. Both body and mind can stop being stressed. Both body and mind can stop running around, working so hard. So to be content with this moment goes a long way in dealing with distractions. Kyoba Jigten Sumgun, the founder of Drigung Kagyu, he said that uninterrupted mindfulness, uninterruptedly free from being distracted, this is the way This is the method. This is the path of all Buddhas of the past, present, and future. Why is uninterrupted non-distraction important or necessary as the method, as the path? Because through uninterrupted non-distraction, we can see clearly phenomena, reality, body, mind, everything. We can see everything clearly as they are. So let's sit just a few moments like this. Then at your own pace, when you are ready, turn your attention to the experience of breath, breath arising and ceasing, breath coming in, breath going out. Here it is before step 1 of the 16 steps. And this is just simply the preliminary. Then again, whenever you're ready, know your breath to be long. When it's long and obvious, breathing in, you note that it is long and obvious. Breathing out, long and obvious, note, recognize that it is long as you exhale. Without forcing your breath to be long, let breath be long and obvious. When your experience of this long breath in and out has occurred over some time, then you can say, now let me experience the breath that is short and soft and subtle. Again, don't do anything to force breath to be short or soft, but just lightly say to yourself, let me now experience breath that is short and soft and quiet. Then just be natural, but keep attention on breath. Now, ideally, 100% of your attention is placed on observing, paying attention to your inhalation and exhalation. Then whenever you're ready, you can move to the third step, which is to experience. Now it says to train in experiencing the entire body. So in a way, you can say now 70% or so of your attention is to become aware and become sensitized to your entire physical body as you continue to have 30% of your attention on the experience of breath coming and going, rising and falling, in and out. Without rush, without hurry, slowly scan your entire body, and especially kind of noting those places where there might be some tension, tightness of muscle, or even pain or discomfort. Now, in this third step, try to pay attention, try to scan and note where are the places where there is tightness or pain or discomfort in the body. Now, don't forget that from one corner of your mind, you are still paying attention to the experience of breath rising and falling, inhaling, exhaling. Step 4 in the 16 steps is called calming or tranquilizing the bodily formations, the bodily activities. Here, it's not referring to the obvious overt activity, since we are now seated contentedly and quietly. Here, it is actually talking about all the things that are going on underneath the skin, all the activities. In particular, the activities that have given rise to discomfort or tension or tightness of muscle or pain. So now, how do we tranquilize? How do we calm that pain? You can use your breath. Now, breathe in and breathe in to where the pain is. Imagine, use your imagination, breathe in breath, and let mind ride on the breath, meaning let your attention, imagine your attention riding on the breath, on the oxygen that is coming in through your nose, and riding it like someone riding a horse or someone riding a dragon. And horses and dragons quickly go in that spot where there is tension, where there is pain or discomfort. And once the breath and the mind arrives there, then think that it eases the tension, it eases the pain, it eases the tightness. Still, don't forget that part of your mind is always returning to breath, the experience of breath. Whenever you're ready, you can go to step 5. And now, with body relatively in a state of wellness, relaxed, present, then Once the body is in a good place, then you can move to step 5, where you are skillfully bringing up the experience of joy or rapture. And this joy, we can bring up joy by trying to remember. Remember things that are skillful or also unskillful. Unskillful are, in this context, the types of joy, the types of excitement that is prompted by sensual experiences, prompted by reliant on sensual experiences, reliant or even addicted to sensual experiences. Don't give rise to joy on that basis. Instead, you can turn your attention to the opening recitations, the meaning of those recitations, how joyous, how wonderful it is that I can give rise to bodhicitta, how wonderful it is that I get to walk in the footsteps of the Buddhas, the great bodhisattvas, and all the great practitioners, that I'm able to do this now myself for the benefit of all beings. Then from step 5 to step 6, basically step 5 is the more obvious, and the immediate arising of joy, of happiness, of delight. 6 is going one step below that, or one level underneath that, meaning just pay attention now to the experience of pleasant, and that it's pleasant to have this joy. So in a way, it's to step back a little bit from that louder joy and delight, and settle into a more quiet appreciation of the experience of joy itself. That is step 6. Don't worry if you find it a little challenging to follow all the different steps. Mainly now, pay attention to breath arising and ceasing, coming in and going out. It's great if you can follow the steps as it is being described. And also don't stress if you cannot follow right now, because we're still familiarizing ourselves with these steps. So to simply rest in experiencing breath in, out, and listening to these steps in this state of mind, slowly and slowly, these steps will become clearer and clearer. From step 6, where you are experiencing this more quiet and even, the undertone of the step 5, from step 6, now when you're ready, you want to step back even further, and now directly pay attention to how easily, how frequently, even when we're sitting here quietly, even when we're not moving physically, even when our minds are relatively settled, pay attention to how quickly that the mind will experience like, dislike, or don't care. How easily the mind responds to whatever that it goes to with those sensations. So these are the mental activities. Pay attention to that, and pay attention to how quickly from a feeling sensation of either like or don't like, then thoughts quickly follow. And when you catch that going on, then simply go back to breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. In step 7, part of what we're doing is paying attention or learning how stressful the mind can quickly turn into, how easily the mind can become stressed, how easily the mind can become very busy. And then seeing that, then we Now turn to step 8, where we say, let these mental formations, let these mental activities quiet down. Let them settle, because it's too much, it's too busy, it's too heavy. Let them just settle. Settle, settle. And then as you breathe in, you think, let them all settle. As you breathe out, you let them all go. So up to this point, we have learned slowly how to train the calm the body and to calm the busy monkey mind. So these first 8 steps are primarily, what's in the foreground is mostly the development of a state of calm abiding. Of course, at every step of these 8 steps, although on the foreground is basically calm abiding that is being cultivated, clear seeing or special insight is never far behind. The seeds, so to say, that will give rise to clear seeing, to vipassana, is already present in a subtle way. So, okay. Yeah, so the first four, as we have seen, pertains to the contemplation of body, setting our mindfulness, and kind of, you could say, shining our mindfulness in the direction of body. The next four is shining our mindfulness in the direction of the feelings or the feeling tones. So an aspect of how the mind works. So these eight then together will give rise to increasingly more serene and more calm and less busy body and mind. The next four is still moving in the direction of cultivating, developing more stability of mind, more relaxed body, body and mind together, settle in a unmoving and clear place. So the next set of four is also moving in this direction. It's the last set of four, 13 to 16, where what comes to the foreground is the cultivation of clear seeing, of vipassana. So some practical considerations. So one, it might be good for you yourself, to come up with like a chart, right, of the 16 steps, yeah, putting the keywords of the 16 steps that you can put in front of you, especially when you're just starting to learn about how to use these 16 steps. So that can be useful. Yeah, until you have, in a more natural and relaxed way, memorize all 16, and then it's less distracting, so to say, if you have the 16 kind of visually in front of you in a summarized form. You don't want to, during your meditation, to be struggling with, wait, is that step 3 or is that 5? Then for this summary, right, you have to remember a few things, especially what I would say is the verbs associated with each of these steps. So the first 2 steps is the verb there is to know or to understand. So there, the connotation is, right, you're not trying actively to make your breath long or to make your breath short. It's simply to know, to understand, this is long now. Oh, this is short now. So the main verb for the first 2 steps is to know, to understand, or you can even say to recognize. This is long. Yes, this is long out. This is long in. This is long out. This is long in. Then, this is short out. This is short in. This is short out. This is short in. To know. So that's the key verb for the first 2 steps. The other 14 steps, they all have a primary verb and a secondary verb. Their primary verb, which they all have, is the word to train. Like, I will train, I shall train, sikati in Pali. I will train. So that's the primary term, verb there for all the other 14. And this word train is there. So there it connotes. Now, unlike the first 2 steps, where you are not deliberately trying to make the breath long or short, not deliberately, although, as I pointed out, indirectly, when you say, now I want to see my breath, how it is long and how it is long in, long out, long in, long out. When you say that, in a way, yes, there's a little bit of effort to start with the long breath and then short and smooth breath, right? But from 14, from 3 to 16, the training part means now we are putting effort in to do something. So to train, that's the primary verb. Then each of them from 3 to 16, they have a secondary verb, so to say. So, for example, the secondary verb for step 3 is experiencing. And the secondary verb for step 4 is calming or tranquilizing. So this is all in the sutra. You don't need to be worried. Oh, I didn't catch it. It's in the sutra. If you look at the sutra, it's there. A secondary verb for 5, 6, 7, they're all experiencing. And then the secondary verb for 8 is, again, calming, tranquilizing, same as step 4. So a tip for those of you who read English, if you go to the Wikipedia entry for Anapanasati, you will find a very nice chart there that summarizes this. I did not check Spanish Wikipedia if it's there or not. I don't know any Vietnamese at all, so I can't check. So we'll talk about the secondary verbs for 9 to 16 later, okay? Before we, today I want to elaborate, say more about step 9 to 12 for sure. Then if we have some time, we can look at start looking at 13 to 16. So as I said before, there are many places in the Tripitaka, in the collection of the Buddha's teachings, where these 16 steps are taught. They are taught most explicitly and in a way most completely in this sutra, this Anapanasati Sutta, but it exists in many different places. So we know on different occasions to different people, the Buddha gave these 16 steps. So in one place, the context of him giving these 16 steps is actually quite interesting, because he meets a monk and he asks the monk, he says, do you practice mindfulness of breathing? Then the monk says, yes, I do. Yeah, so then the Buddha says, and how do you practice this? Then the monk said, he said, something along these lines, okay? Basically, he said, when I breathe in and when I breathe out, I don't dwell in the past, and I don't run in, chase the future. I remain present here. He said, this is how I practice mindfulness of breath. So the way this monk talked about how he practices mindfulness of breath is in fact something that we probably recognize. This idea of don't let the mind dwell in the past. Don't let the mind stray into the future. Just present here with the breath. In, out, just present every moment, every moment, every moment, every moment. Yeah. So that is good, of course. But interestingly, here the Buddha says, "Oh monk, I have a more detailed way to practice mindfulness of breathing. I have a way that when you apply these 16 steps, it leads to liberation." So what is implied there is the Buddha is saying to the monk, the way you are the way you have done it, it's okay. But it will not lead to liberation. Meaning, if the mind is simply just present, moment to moment to moment present, which I think those of you who are familiar with like secular meditation in the West, you hear that a lot. Just be present, just be present. The Buddha says, yeah, well, but it doesn't lead to freedom. It doesn't really lead to liberation. So the Buddha says, I have these 16 steps. Then he talked about the 16 steps. Yeah. So there's something special about these 16 steps. Oh, another practical point that I forgot. Now I just recalled. So when you're doing the 16 steps, or at least now, 1 to 8, yeah, how much time for each step need not be fixed. No need to say, 5 minutes each, or 3 minutes each, or 1 minute each. Just start with step 1. Stay there for as long as you want, as long as you are comfortable. Then step 2. And then stay in 2 for as long as you can, as long as you want. Then step 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that will change. On some days, you mostly stay in 2. Then you go to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is the way of practicing this as a whole set. Like I said before, in some other traditions, and even with His Holiness, he's not saying you have to do all 16 in one sitting. But generally, it is that you should go through as many of these steps as you can. Often we have this idea, like meditation is like the mind becoming more and more and more sharp, more and more narrow, more and more focused, more and more focused. Sometimes we even I can meditate until I don't hear anything anymore. It's like, wow, that's a lot of work, Why don't you just get noise canceling headphones, In the way that this Anapanasati Sutta talks about meditation, then you can say that it's always a dance, you can say, between stillness and movement, stillness and movement. Right now in our life, an untrained mind, right now, I think the recording was paused. Let's wait for the record. Okay. Right now, in our untrained mind, we also, stillness, movement, stillness, movement. Then with an untrained mind, the stillness is a ignorant stillness, and the movement is attachment and aversion motivated movement. But when we start to train according to this way, then the stillness is not an ignorant stillness. It's a stillness which is bright and clear. Then with movement, right? It's movement that gives rise to understanding, developing insight. So like when we experience the whole body, right? In a way, it's step 3, right? To scan the body for bodily activities, experiencing the whole body. Like I said earlier, during the guided meditation, you scan the body. In a way, you are moving out of the stillness that has come from simply watching your breath. But this movement is a type of movement that is geared towards giving rise to clarity, giving rise to understanding, giving rise to knowledge, liberating knowledge. Likewise, right? In step 7, where it says, I will train to experience mental formations, mental activities. Yeah. So when do you do that? You do that after you have trained in experiencing joy and trained in experiencing happiness, right? So the joy and the happiness, the mind is in a quiet place, in a still place, kind of absorb in this good place, still. But then you don't stay in the stillness. From that stillness, you begin to, again, have skillful movement. And this movement is to train to experience mental formations. On some, of course, you know, when the mind is not trained, when it faces mental formations, then it produces stress, a lot of heat, almost like a car, you know, without lubrication, without the radiator to cool things down, and then it's all just heat. But now you have the power of joy and happiness preceding that to kind of lubricate things. Then you can turn your attention to what in the past is potentially stress-inducing. Now it's not stress-inducing, but it's necessary to look at the busyness of mind in order to then, in step 8, tranquilize, calm the mental activities. Then now, in the last class, I started talking about 9, 10, 11, and 12, right? So again, if quickly, last class I said, so with 9, it says, now you're trained to experience the mind, right? So I said, first thing is, we should not think of the mind as a thing, something singular. And so you can say thoughts. So now I will train to experience thoughts. So the difference between thoughts here and the mental activities before in like step 7 and then step 8, you calm those mental formations, those mental activities. Thoughts here, you can think of it as the more you could say like emotions, more formed, right? Last week I suggested that's 1, that's how you look at 9. Then with 10, how do you gladden the mind? But you also understand, that actually these thoughts, they're just thoughts, and they're temporary. Then you're like, I don't need this. I can let this go. This doesn't need to torture me. So gladdening of the mind can be experienced. And then when you are, so this gladdening is sort of related to, at the very beginning, I talked about contentment. So so this gladdening is closely related to the joy and to the happiness. But this is an even deeper level. A deeper level where it comes from this contentment. Like, so now this contentment is, oh, I don't need to be bothered by these thoughts. And then 9 and then 10 and 11, then 11 says centering or focusing. Another translation says, I train in focusing the mind. But think of it as centering the mind. The mind is now centered. Or you can also say it is concentrating. Sometimes it's also translated as that. But it's the one part of this word that is translated into concentrating, centering, focusing is sama. Sama is even, same. So the mind now becomes even. It becomes glad, and when it becomes glad, then it easily becomes centered, stable. So 10 and 11 is Now with the mind becoming more even and centered, even that you have to go to step 12, which is releasing it, freeing it. So this is a training in not grasping after that stable, that not letting there be any grasping. Release it, free it. Now, there's a second way to practice these four, and it's related to the understanding of what is it that you're training to experience when it says train to experience the mind. So this is a second way. The second way to train for these next four steps, 9 to 12, is rather than having your attention on like emotions and overt thoughts, you now look at the quality of the mind itself, which is the quality of principally knowing. Knowing. That's sort of like, you may say, wait, this is a little mysterious. What do you mean? Well, it's actually not that mysterious. So for example, you're reading a book, right? You're reading a book and you might get very, if it's a good book, you're so involved in reading a book. But there are moments where you can also be aware, oh, I'm reading a book. Even though you're involved, you're like, I'm reading a book. So likewise here, from 8, right? Step 8 is you're calming the mental activity. So now calming. Then from there you go to training to look at. Training to look, so to experience. That's the meaning. To look at that which knows. The knowing mind. So the word here is chitta. In Pali, in Sanskrit, chitta. So this denotes mind itself, the knowing quality of mind. So again, there are many thoughts, right? But no matter what the thoughts are, some thoughts we say good, some thoughts we say bad, some thoughts skillful, some thoughts unskillful. What makes all these thoughts, what makes all these feelings possible is that quality of knowing or awareness. So now you experience that knowing, you experience that awareness. So in Tibetan tradition, we might call this the nature of mind, you know. But of course, in Mahamudra and Dzogchen, this training in the nature of mind has their own kind of steps and levels, right? So here, we're not necessarily going into that direction, but it's the equivalent. And here is looking not exact equivalent, but this is talking about rather than knowing the activities of the mind, which are thoughts, you are looking at that which make thoughts possible, which is this quality of knowing, this awareness. And if you practice step 9 in this manner, right, then naturally the gladdening happens. And you're just simply, in 10, you're simply moving the gladdening aspect to the front. And then when the gladdening happens, again, that is the contentment that will naturally then lead to the centering, the focusing. Again, this is not focusing narrowly, but rather a natural coming together of the mind, and it resides in this, you could say, samadhi. And then step 12, also more naturally, it will be freed. All, I said, 3 to 16, they're all trainings, right? So effort. But it becomes more and more effortless as you go down this list, if you do it right. At the beginning, when you are just trying to go through all the 16, then every step is a little, awkward, but you familiarize. So Jiten Sumgön says, the real meaning of meditation is to familiarize. So that's what we're doing. So Kyopa Jiten Sumgun has a famous saying, Gomba Mayin, Gomba Yin, in Tibetan, Gomba Mayin, Gomba Yin. So there, to translate the meaning, not literal translation, but translate the meaning is basically, he says, what we mean by meditation is simply to habituate, to familiarize. Now, right now, we are familiarizing mistaken reality. Our mistaken ideas about what is. We have become habituated to that. So then the result is suffering. By doing these 16 steps, this kind of meditation, what we're doing is we are familiarizing or habituating that which is real, the way things are. So at the beginning of habituating the real, it will take more effort. But you see, the more we habituate, because what we're habituating is essentially the way things are, the nature of things, then it becomes easier and easier and easier. It becomes less effortful. It becomes more and more effortless as we progress along. Okay, so let's see if we have any questions, comments, clarification. You can unmute yourself and ask, or you can write. Yes, go ahead.
I have a question about, I think you've answered it, but about number 11, when you're talking about steadying or centering or this evenness of mind, does that mean that you've sort of stabilized the realization that these thoughts do not matter and we don't have to keep on? But in addition, you have the mind observing that the mind is doing that. Is that what you're studying, or is there another?
Okay, go ahead and translate the question. It depends on whether you're practicing the first way or the second way. That's slightly different, the meaning there. But the main point there is the mind now enters a more stable state of coming together and no longer distracted and no longer having these, kind of emotional ups and downs.
So it's,
Oh, hold on. Needs to be translated.
Chị muốn nhờ chánh
Yes,
nhân
go ahead.
chị muốn nhờ chánh nhân dịch ra tiếng Anh cho thầy được không? Tại vì chị nói tiếng Việt thì của những cái pháp mà chị học được á thì nó thuần thục hơn là chị nói bằng tiếng Anh với thầy.
Chị ơi, chánh nhân không thể nói ra được ở chân main room.
Nếu vậy thì thôi để chị nói thẳng luôn đi với thầy đi. Like you told about when we are not to distract something, like every activity, when the mind of the people why way to confront of this, why way they go to attract by the phenomenon outside, and also for the sense, and also the attack by the karma for each people. That's why they go to do something not in the right way, but is bringing to the samsara. It cannot to return to the Buddhahood. That's why I think like that. That's why everybody needs to know where is our nature of mind. That's why when everything we confront every activity, we can go to right away. We can go to concentrate on to return to the nature of mind. That's why we can go to get the goal to become to return to the Buddhahood. That's right.
Yes. So let me summarize. Yes. That's the basic understanding, right? Now we are not acting according to our nature, which is also acting not according to the way things are. And because we act in this way, then the result is only suffering. But once we understand, oh, this is our nature, which is also understanding, oh, this is just the way how everything is, then we have to train how to operate from that position of understanding our nature, understanding the nature of things. Then the more we familiarize, the more we go in that direction, then more and more, right? All the habits, the wrong habits from the past, slowly, they have less power until they're all gone. Yes,
that's right, like that. That's why we cannot to be the attract by our habit, when our desire.
Yes. Our habits, our karma, all constantly pull us back to confusion.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead and translate, Andres, the summary. So Evelyn, I think.
Hola maestro, tengo la siguiente pregunta. Los verbos para los pasos 10, 11 y 12 será para 10 alegrando, 11 concentrar, 12 liberar.
I just have to repeat your question. Yeah, go ahead.
Andrés, ¿me ayudas?
Uh-huh. I cannot hear you now. I don't know. Okay, now. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Secondary verb. Yeah, yeah. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah. So just to clarify, the question was the secondary verbs, right? For 10, 11, 12. Is it gladdening, centering or focusing, and then releasing or freeing? Yes, those are the secondary terms. The primary term was to train. Train to gladden, train to center, to focus, and train to free. And no grasping. Yes.
Muchas gracias, Lama. Muchas gracias, Andrés.
Sure. Go ahead. Next question. Sign of the times.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Honlai. This is referring to what the Vietnamese colleague just asked you about. And you answered that we are not acting according to our true nature of how or the way things are.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, when it comes to the karma seeds or our own deeds, because our own seeds have an effect. So when we did something wrong or we are suffering actually due to our past actions, should we repay or should we like pay for our own sentence when it comes to undoing the wrong deeds we did before?
Mm-hmm.
Should we do that first and then start focusing on the 16 steps, the Dharma,
Right,
the good practice?
Yes.
Or can both things be taken at the same time?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure. Good. Go ahead and translate the question. So yes, a very necessary practical question. Yes, our karmic habits, especially the negative ones, they are constantly coming after us, taking us somewhere else, kind of derailing us. So what we should do is to remember that. And so within the tradition, there are different practices that we do. So, for example, in the Tibetan tradition, we have purification practices that we do. And whatever purification practice we do, we say we have to rely on the 4 powers. The power of regret, regretting the negative actions that we have done in the past. Past could be 10 lifetimes ago. Past could be 10 minutes ago. Then we need to rely on the awakened ones. And so like if you're doing a particular practice with a particular deity or particular Buddha, that's what it's referring to. Relying on their example, relying on their blessings, relying on them being witness to our commitment, to especially the third step, which is making a resolve or promise not to repeat this. And then finally, the fourth one is the power of the remedy, meaning whatever meditation, whatever practice, maybe prostrations, maybe recitation of Ajasattva mantra. So we can do that, Then other traditions, they have other ways of doing this kind of purification. So do this simultaneously. You don't have to wait, Do this simultaneously. Then also, we have to keep our vows. We have to keep our precepts of not harming. We have to practice generosity. We have to practice the vows of not harming is also about integrity, right? We need to have integrity. We need to avoid causing harm. We need to practice generosity. We need to give. All those will help to purify negative karma. All those are bringing together, on the one hand, clearing negative karma, on the other hand, attracting positive conditions for our dharma practice to grow. So, so what I say here, you know, what I teach, you know, in the last 5 weeks now, 5 classes, it's my job to try to say it as clearly as I can understand it. It's my job to give details. It's my job to clarify to the degree that I'm able to say, oh, it's this. No, it's not that, right? But don't mistake, you know, whatever I say and whatever you hear to be actually what is. As Buddha keeps reminding us, you know, even with the teachings that he gave, it's only a finger pointing to the moon. You have to look for the moon on the basis of the finger. But the finger is not the moon. So what I mean here is, don't try to, you know, like get every word I say. Don't try to like feel like you need to understand everything I say. Just understand enough generally, and then do the practice. Because when you do the practice, even if at the beginning you say step 6, I don't exactly understand what this happiness is. Doesn't matter. You do, and as you do, you will see the moon more clearly and more clearly. And then when you are seeing the moon and you're not sure, is this the moon or not? Then yes, you can come and check again. At that point, then it's, you know, it's more useful to check in at that point. I think I saw the moon. Is the moon like this, like this, like that? You know, and if I have seen the moon, then I can tell you, oh, yes, 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 or no, 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 that's not the moon. So don't give so much pressure on yourself. Oh, I need to understand everything that I heard on the one hand. On the other hand, if you think you understood everything that I said, don't feel so confident because they are just words, you know. You have to practice and actually go looking for the moon, you know. Yeah, so that's it tonight. Thank you so much. So we'll do dedication prayer at the end. Yeah. So we will do this again, like the way we did before. By this virtue, may I achieve omniscience, and may all who travel on the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies of confusion. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activity spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri the warrior realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings. May the life of the Lama, the glory of the teachings be firm. May the world be filled with holders of the teaching. May the abundant strength of the teaching's patrons increase, and may all be auspicious so that the teachings remain for ages to come. Zonam de Tomje Zebane Tomye Nebe Ranam Pomje de Kega Nachi Balon Trumpaye Sebe Sole Drowa Shu Janju Zemju Rinpoche Mage Banam Gengurje Gyaba Nyamba Mebaya Gone Gondu Pelwar Shu Lama Kukang Sangwa Soba de Choktu Kuse Ringwa Soba de Tele Dashin Gepa Soba de Lama Dang Trewa Mepa Jinji Lo Jempe Pavo Jeda Gempa Dang Kundu Sangpo Deyan Deshin De Da Kunji Jesu Talo Ching Gewa Dida Tamche Radu Tempe Pegyu Lame Shape Den Zing Kebu Santen Yonla Gyan Tempe Jindang Antan Jorwa Ge Tempa Yurin Nebe Trashi Sho. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night. Have a good day. Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning.
Gracias,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mama. Brenda.
Bye.
Gracias.
Good day.
Bye. Buenas noches.
Thank you, Dr. Lai.
Buenas noches, gracias.
Gracias.
Bye bye. See you soon.
Thank you.